Okay. Good evening,
Yes.
Verity. So what's the issue?
Well, I'm on steamer operational level,
Mm.
and I have sat P1 now 3 times,
Mhm.
failed each time. First time I sat, I got 94, which I was quite pleased with, and the exam went better than I thought it was going to be, bearing in mind the reputation that P1 has. So I booked for a resit, did a resit, and I got 92. The paper felt a lot more difficult on the second time, so I thought, okay, fair enough. If I can be there or thereabouts on a difficult paper, I've got this. Sat my third one last week actually, and I got 87, which means I've taken 3 exams, and each time I've gone backwards. So I'm really just looking for some advice from you, really, as to why I'm going the wrong way.
Um, what's happening with you about time in that exam?
Um, it's really tight for time. The first time when I failed, I felt okay with time. Second time I failed, I didn't finish the paper.
Mhm.
Third time I failed, I sort of finished the paper, but I didn't get time to check anything. So I was literally on the last question. Uh, I sort of went through and tried to do the easy ones, if there are any, on the first go through. And I was kind of on the second go through to try and hit the hard ones. But I only got through that once, and then there was no time to check any answers. The exam was finished.
Mm. Okay.
It's very precious for time.
So what are you doing to revise?
Um, well, when I first started
Actually, no, no.
writing, or
Let me ask you a different question than that. Tell me from the beginning.
okay,
What did you do to learn it, revise it, and yeah.
um, I because I self study at home, so the first thing I did was go through the Kaplan textbook, um, chapter by chapter, not in order actually, just to try and pick out what was going to keep my interest the most. And then alongside that, I used the free open tuition lectures, which I really like, to try and, when I didn't quite understand something, watch it. Um, and that was kind of really what I did for the first attempt.
Mhm.
After the
The
second
questions
attempt,
at the end of the chapter.
um, I looked at them, yes, but I suppose the problem. Oh, and sorry, then I did mock questions before the actual exam, so I had done practice questions.
Yeah.
But I find when I do the chapter itself and then I look through the questions, I'm like, oh yes, I know that, I know that, I know that. Um, so I then kind of did all that and then did some practice questions and said the first one didn't feel as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Mm.
Um, the second, because I felt I was let down. Where I let myself down the first time was with the mathsy type questions. So for the second effort, I really focused on the mathsy type questions, heavily using the Kaplan practice test textbook. And I also bought the Estrani mini mock that comes with the P1.
Right.
And I suppose, yeah, that was okay. And then for the third attempt, I just went really mathsy, and I just worked through that Kaplan text practice question over and over and over again.
And how do you
So
feel?
I just, sorry, go on.
Sorry, keep going if you've still
No,
answered.
what I did is that I got my daughter roped in as well, and we just sort of sat there and wrote. I think there's 249 questions in the textbook. I know this from experience. So both of us would just write down 60 random numbers, so I could sit like a 60 question paper each
Mm.
time. So sometimes, she'd pick the same number as me, and then sometimes I was getting something completely random. So I kind of had 4 practice tests of just random numbers through the textbook.
Mhm.
And that's what I've been doing.
Okay. How do you feel about P1 now?
Oh gosh, that's a really funny question, isn't it? I'm bored of it,
Right.
but I don't know if that's perhaps the petulant teenager coming out in me, going, "Oh, because I can't do it. I've made myself think that I'm bored of it," and I'm probably a little bit frightened of it as well.
Mm. Mm. I mean, it'll vary over time, but I'm just trying to get a sense of where you are with it.
Yeah, I'm quite frightened and daunted by getting through P1. It's like a barrier I can't crack.
And is the way you think about it, gosh, how do I make up this 13-point gap? The last one.
Yeah,
And
it is, because it's that big gap to close. Yeah, that's a big gap to close. It's quite demotivating, because in between each exam, it looks as if I've done my work, but I've actually taken annual leave from work. I've been working at evenings and weekends, and to suddenly find that despite all of the work I'd already done, plus all the extra I've done between each reset, I'm still 13 points away, and that's just from scraping a pass. I need to get more than 13 points. 14 points would be fine. But it does feel like a long, I don't know how to close the gap, which is why I sort of came to you. I'm like, what? I'm obviously doing something wrong, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I look on the forum that you run, and everyone say practice questions, and I'm doing that, but I'm going backwards.
Mm. Okay. Well, let's step back a bit from the initial problem and ask you a wacky question instead. You ever lost?
Okay.
It's typically this happens with keys or mobile phones, but it doesn't. It could be anything. But you ever lost an object, searched really, really hard for it, and couldn't see it, and then
I
step back from that and find it appears?
Yes. My life is a really busy one. So is everybody. So I'm not sort of making an excuse. But I work full time, and I've got 2 children, and I look after a home and everything that goes with having a family. So yes, I can lose something, or I perhaps choose to say put it somewhere so safely that I can't find it. Yes. And then yes, you kind of forget that you were looking for it, and then it just turns up without you realizing where it was.
Exactly. It's such a common problem, but it is a universal, I would say. Once you've got to a certain age, you've done that. Everybody's done it.
I've done it more than once.
Several times.
More than I like to, yes.
Loads of people have done that several times. And even before I knew about the coaching that I do, I had worked out that stepping back in such a situation was a good idea.
Yes.
Yes,
no, it is.
Carry on.
Yeah, no, I'd say, because I'm trying to be quite organised, I will, buy Christmas presents for the children sort of through the autumn, when you see something that they like or something that's on a good offer. And then, yes, you get to Christmas and you can't find it, and you run around like a headless chicken, wasting time looking for something because you can't remember where you hid it.
Exactly. And often it's just a shift of mental state that you sit down, you calm down, and it comes to you. I mean, I had one.
When you're lying in bed.
Yes, when you're lying in bed. I had one recently where I put a job application in, and my Facebook group on the operational case study was relevant to it. But I was so absorbed kind of mentally in my operational case study group that I just put that down and didn't realise I'd written an article on P1 months previous. And that was relevant too. And it came to me getting on with my life, doing some temp purchase ledger clerk work. And suddenly, and you just go, oh, it is, people have joked about this, like the Homer Simpson thing, where you hit your head and go, duh, because you suddenly realise the thing you've forgotten, the thing you've lost, where it is, where, and so on and so forth. It's incredible.
Yeah, and then you feel a bit silly because you were running around looking for something and it was obvious all the time.
But it's because you're in a sort of unproductive mental state. Now, with me forgetting my P1 article, I wasn't too bad, but I just had this little hole in reality where I'd forgotten that I'd done it, which burst open at one point. And these things may well be the thing that's standing in your way from getting P1. Because in the wrong state of mind, you can't learn academically either.
Yes, I think you're probably right, and I've sort of explained to you when we first made contact. I'm forcing myself to sit down and study. I'm not choosing to study, which is probably the wrong way to even get to the table in the first place. I'm forcing myself to do this.
And the mental state that goes very hard on the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and gets terribly focused. And you can see this in the Facebook groups, that you get people, I'm just a little bit out of the way, just a little bit away from it. And yes, sometimes the combination of a little more practice, which may speed you up a little bit, and quite possibly a little bit of fluke of how the exam questions land will get you over the 100 and pass. So just enough times that looks like it works. Plus, you talk to me in the run up to P1, I'll say, question practice, I didn't do huge amounts of it, but it did help me. It helped me clarify a few things. So it looks like question practice is the answer. Well, there are plenty of diets that work some of the time. I'm not fond of the immediate advice to do question practice.
See, this is what I'm thinking maybe I've gone wrong, is I have spent because I haven't crammed them close together like some people on the group do. I have tried, say I've got other things, I've got family, I've got, there was Christmas in between there and everything else, and obviously work. And my first attempt was 94. And I'm perhaps thinking that over the, what was it, sort of two and a bit months, where I focused solely on this run of just going through the middle of all these questions. Do you think perhaps maybe I've forgotten some of the theory that I actually learned when I was first preparing myself for the exam?
Yes. I suspect that is what's happened.
Yeah, because I'm only saying this thinking like, well, because we're kind of like thinking out loud here, aren't we? And I put so much work in, but I'm thinking that maybe it's getting a bit deep and meaningful, but the quality learning that I put in to take P1, as in my first proper attempt at the exam, when I was learning the material and actually interested in it and motivated, I think maybe I might have forgotten some of that because I have just been practice. And it's not all maths in this paper. There's quite a lot of theory and understanding the background of the theory in this paper.
There is quite a lot of theory in P1 indeed.
That's the bit I enjoy the most. I enjoy the theory more than plowing through the throughput accounting calculations and everything else, which just bores me to tears.
Good, because the OCS certainly, P2 is different, but the OCS is certainly more on the theory.
Yeah, because I find the math side of it makes me cross. Because I mean, I spend probably like most of us most of my day on Excel. I don't ever really work anything out by hand, and I get cross. Why am I working this out by hand? If I was actually doing this job in an office, I wouldn't be working it out like this.
It's all about understanding it, though. I mean,
yes.
I mean, there are a couple of reasons why I'm dubious of just the question practice. One of which would sound a little bit esoteric, but my coaching works around understanding the system. So I've seen the huge advantages of understanding the system. So the stuff I was talking about, thought so far, there you go. Thought creates your world, and occasionally it blocks you so you can't pass exams and you can't get on with people sometimes. You have difficulty with until you learn to see through some of the thought. And then you go, okay, I may think he's a pain in the butt, but actually he may be coming from a different perspective. That's another one we all have our own separate realities. So when you understand the system, things get a lot easier. So yes, I did question practice at the end, but that was only to check my otherwise quite strong understanding of the material, because I'd gone straight for understanding it. I understood it. I would sit there sometimes with the textbook and play around with figures. And I think you've seen my P1 article where I talk about the basic variances, putting them in the table. That took days to get the notation right. So when I actually used the formula, I would use it right instead of timesing it by revenue, I think I used to do. Get the notation expressed right and getting it arranged properly in the right columns. And I was learning all the time. I mean, I've been involved with this sort of type of coaching, more lifestyle almost, for 5 years. So I get a sense of when the insight's coming, those aha moments when things change. So I could feel these insights coming through. Oh yes, I'm learning it and understanding it. And I suspect a lot of people don't sit there, muck around with the figures, rearrange the formulae. So, if it starts off with A to B, then it'll go from B to A. And yet the exams, as you've probably noticed, ask you that. They ask you to count the other way around. They do it inside out. There are all sorts of seamers the whole time in that exam. And people haven't played with those figures enough will fall and come cropper in an exam because they're not strong enough at just playing with those figures, which you may, you see, if you're annoyed about it, you're probably more likely to go into these blocked mental states. Any kind of negative mental state is likely to be obscuring your learning. However, don't be afraid to go and start studying when in a negative mental state, because they pass through and change. And often going to your textbook, I don't know whether this is true of you, but often for me at least, going to my textbook is one way of calming me down.
Yes, I actually don't mind studying. I think to even start this journey, you've got to be somebody that doesn't mind opening a textbook and learning and, you know, putting other things on hold. So no, I do sometimes quite like sitting there quietly with my textbook. So yes, I it can be quite calming, you say, when you're in the frame of mind.
And that's your inner attitude to textbook study. And it comes out when you sit down with a textbook.
Yeah.
You know, I remember with E2, there was a little drama going on that would buzz around in my mind. But when I sat down and got on with E2, I was totally there in E2, and I wasn't spinning my thoughts up over and over and over again like an anxious person that, yeah, I was getting outside of studying.
I mean, I did that when I was in the exam for my third attempt. When I got there and we started flicking through the questions to sort of pick the easy ones, I was like, oh my God, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And I kind of almost had to stop and take a breath and say, come on, you can do this. And this is in the exam. So it's not the best time to have this moment. But in the exam, I was like, come on, you can do this. Because I had that like absolute, not a complete freeze, but like you have to stop and take a breath type thing. Because it's like, I can't do it. I can't. It's just, but obviously I did know something. Not as much as I would have hoped, but I did know something.
So what are you seeing now? What are you going in terms of, oh, here's what I think I should do, what I shouldn't have done, or whatever?
Well, I've bought Aptitude 2 for more practice questions, but actually just sort of now it's like you've just told me this and I'm just now telling myself this. By taking a step back and talking to you now, I have kind of realized that actually I've probably dropped the theory that knowledge that I did have in a sheer desperation to practice questions, and that maybe plowing straight on to Aptitude 2 isn't going to be the best option for me, and perhaps I should go back to my actual notes that I took when I was going through the textbooks, and even perhaps going back to some of the open tuition lectures that I used to support the textbooks. I think maybe I should revise the material again. Just consolidate it, put it back to the front of my mind. The things that perhaps I knew in November that I don't know if I know anymore. But that's only just talking to you now, where I've gone, do you think I've forgotten things? And you're going, oh yeah, you probably have. So I don't think I should plough straight into practice questions, one after the other, and then you get disheartened and bored.
You see, the people who get the high scores on P1, nearly all of them seem to say it's not a time pressured exam. Not for me anyway. Except it is for others, but it wasn't for us. And for me, that's to do with the level of understanding. It's not just, you see, I'd argue it's not just an intellectual understanding of P1 you need. Those little insights I was talking about, those aha moments, mean that it becomes very smooth and very easy. You know, you naturally know what you're looking for in a question because you've seen the insights. You see, I've seen people on one of the forums saying, you know, it just isn't time to get my head around the question. Well, that's because you're intellectually trying to get your head around the question rather than just it. Okay. We naturally, when we write, we naturally put the grammar in approximately right. Okay.
Yeah.
Think about it. But if you've learned English as a second language, you may find that grammar extremely hard to do. See?
Yes.
and it's getting enough insights, getting enough aha moments. This is, you know, formula around the other way, writing, mind mapping it, all this sort of stuff. It keeps your head in that material for long enough to start seeing things new is incredibly valuable. I'm highly unlikely to have an insight into plumbing. Why? Because I don't do enough plumbing or ever do any plumbing. So in order to have the insights, you do need to be with that material enough.
Yes.
You're not going to have a blinding insight about ABC costing if you don't touch the stuff.
Exactly.
Really,
but then, like what you're saying is right. Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is right. I mean, I've been doing my job for 2 years now, the exact job I've been doing. I've been with the company over 4. And people will ask me a question and you just know it. It's just part of you. And people will be like, how do you know all these things? And it's just there. And I think that's probably what P1 needs. And thinking ahead to the OCS as well, it just kind of, the theory needs to be part, I know it's a bit ridiculous way to say it, but it's sort of part of you without, like you say, if you didn't have to think so hard in the exam, you wouldn't be stressing out so much because you just know it without having to think about it so much. Yes. Yes, it's a different way of looking of studying, isn't it? Or revising. And it's completely different from, like, you know, like the forums that you run for us on Facebook. Everyone's just like practice. Hardly anybody says, well, people say be familiar, but practice. No one sort of says know the theory till you can breathe it, sort of thing.
I have occasionally gone on there and said something like, I said to one person, what do you not understand about P1? Repeated failure. I said, what do you not understand about P1? She said, oh, I understand most of it. I just keep failing it. I said, I know there's this stuff about probability in P1, but if you don't know it, you're running at a very high chance of not passing it. So people don't really want to face the extent to which they don't know. One of the fast ways in, by the way, is a mock. Certain caps will give you a pretty accurate thing of where you've got the biggest problems, at least. But, you know, I said to another one, oh, what did I say? I think I made a few minor points. Then I said, you know, something like you need a break. And she said, which is great, by the way, sometimes just taking breaks allows you, when you relax and go into a different mental state, your inner learning ability, innate health and inner, then it will hit you with an insight on text. But I said to her, you could do a break. She said, I don't dare take a break in case I never return. And I said, well, what about the cinema or something? And said, you need to get back to loving the accountancy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I, as a self-studying at home, you know, with no other contact with anybody else, I absolutely love the Facebook groups. And you know, some of the girls in there are so friendly, you kind of almost feel like you know them because you're all going on this journey together. But I think sometimes we are all leading each other up the garden path, because I remember reading a comment and a lady had failed P1 and she was in 2 minds about how quickly to rebook the exam. And someone had put rebook it as soon as possible, because if you don't rebook it and revise, you'll have to relearn. And I think it's almost like that fear that if you're not constantly at it to pass it, you know, that it's going to fall out of your brain, out of your ears and onto the floor and it's gone. I think that is I say I love the Facebook group and I wouldn't leave it, but I think maybe we all put ourselves under so much pressure, like, oh, you're so close, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, and keep practicing those questions, rather than perhaps taking a deep breath, standing back, and like you're saying to me now, why are you going backwards? And like kind of almost made me think, actually, I knew more back in November of the actual theory and the bit I enjoyed about it than sitting there day after day just doing practice question and losing my theory, the theory and the enjoyment of the exam. Well, that's the terrible way of explaining it. No exam is ever enjoyable, but the enjoyment of the subject.
Why not? Why not? Why can't they be enjoyable?
Because they're too frightening.
Wrong assumption, in my view. You can enjoy an exam and you'll be in a better mental state for it.
Right. If you come out of an exam and you feel you've tried your hardest and you get that piece of paper with the pass on, that was just the best hour and a half of your life. So you can enjoy an exam. You can.
Yeah, that's retrospectively in the moment. You can enjoy in it. You absolutely can enjoy an exam. I sure has been done. Yeah. But I
chose CIMA over ACCA because I thought it was something I could enjoy.
Sorry, say that again because the sound cracked up.
I said I chose CIMA over ACCA because I think it's a subject matter that I enjoy.
Yeah.
The CIMA syllabus. Because it's interesting.
Yeah. It's much more businessy on orientation, although I gather the syllabus crossover is massive between the two. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, on the Facebook groups, it's always interesting to me to see what's the underlying thinking, because so often when we have a set of thinking, the answers to our problems are nearly always just outside it. So what I see in those Facebook, and this is not to criticize them. I mean, I run some of them, as you know, but I suppose I first saw it really at the UK one, is there's some fundamental assumptions in there that pass is good, very good, fail is bad, and then you want to take the shortest length of time possible between the exams. And that's what they run on. Now, hold on. That might sound the obvious answer, but here's some of the ways that you can kind of break that down. Most of us have jobs in finance. Most of us would like to be good at our jobs in finance, and therefore perhaps a better criteria is, are you good at it, not how you pass the exam system.
Yes,
really
definitely.
We're talking now, but that way of doing it, if you do it now by really understanding the material, you will have done a better path in many ways than if you just got a lot faster answering the questions and happened to tip over the 100.
Yes, because at the end of the day, this is a professional qualification that we're all going to take into work, and there's no point having the letters if you just flew through the exams and didn't really actually understand it that much. Just
there was somebody in there the other day saying
learned to pass the exam.
Yeah.
Yes, it can be quite pressured in the forum groups. And I mean, I love it when people share their journeys and you can see how hard, well, everyone works hard. Again, I don't take that away. Everyone has worked hard. But there's sometimes people go, oh, I've passed P1 and I did it in 6 weeks and I did it. And to somebody like me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it can sort of throw me off course. Obviously it's great for people that can do that, but it does kind of they're obviously working incredibly hard.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. See, I've seen people who have done well get chased. You know, they get there are loads of questions. How do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it? Well, look, they're just different from you. You're not doing it wrong, and they are doing it right. They may not have worked. I mean, there was someone, I'll definitely not mention any names, who skimmed through E1 and F1 really fast and came cropper like nobody's business on P1, because it wasn't. She might have a photographic memory on that. That might be considered photographic memory. That you can remember all the facts of F1 and you can remember all the facts of E1, but when you actually try and do calculations that are backwards, forwards, and inside out, as we've mentioned, photographic memory won't work.
Yes. No. Hello, you still there?
Yes, I'm still there. Anything else strike you?
Sorry. No, I think I'm just getting myself very stressed. I think what is partly worrying me is now, like, all the added situation is now that sorry, Imogen, I've arranged somebody to pick my son up to take him to football, but football's actually cancelled, but they've still turned up, so I'm hoping everyone can sort it out without me there. The situation with the syllabus change, it just feels like that's, although I'm in quite a good position where
you've cut out,
but I've kind of I've seemed to have added this extra. Oh, hello.
Yeah, it's something funny with the sound.
I've hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I've kind of added this extra layer of stress. Although I've got loads of time still before the change to get through the OCS, but then I'm thinking, well, oh my gosh, if I don't get to do the OCS in May, and then my first one is in August, and then I fail it in August, and then I can only do it in November, and then if I fail it in November, I can only do the reset in February next year, and oh my gosh, then I'm going to be completely messed up. I won't know anything. So I think I've kind of added that on to the stress level now, which is a little bit stupid, if I'm honest with you, because I'm talking about a year away.
Okay, stupid perhaps, but human certainly totally recognisable. This is what we do.
The thing is, and my mum sort of said this to me the first time I failed P1. She says, you've never failed anything in your life before. You know, she didn't say, she meant like as in, are you okay? Because you've never failed anything in your life before. You know, I've got GCSEs, I've got A-levels, I've got a degree, I passed my driving test first time. I've never failed anything before. And now, having failed P1 3 times, whether I've lost my confidence, I'm thinking, oh crikey, now if I fail the next one 3 times, and then it's like you say, human nature to suddenly worry about failing. Never had to worry about failing before P1.
Well, this is what we do. We spiral, you know, we grab onto a negative thought and then we build on it over and over and over and over again. So one of the humorous sayings about this is, if you've got 2 what ifs in your mind, they multiply like rabbits. And so you're now building something huge just on, you know, 2 things, which we've now kind of discovered could just be down to a study technique you look set to abandon.
Yeah, because I've never failed. I've always followed the same study technique, which might be a little bit old-fashioned, because I mean it's over 20 years since I graduated. It's a long time, but I still have followed the read the textbook, write your notes, use a highlighter. You know, I'm not all these newfangled things. I'm not so good at.
Yeah.
But that's what's got me through all the other CIMA exams so far, and that's what I was doing up until I sat. I'm answering my own questions here now, aren't I, Imogen? Up until I sat the November, like my first P1 exam in November, I followed the same tried and tested. I'm answering my own questions. This is going crazy now. I followed the same learning pattern and studying pattern that I have probably followed since I sat my GCSEs and A-levels 25 years ago. But since I failed P1 for the first time, I've followed I can't believe I'm telling you what I needed to know all along. I followed a completely different study track from one that I've ever followed before. And focusing on question practice without, I like reading, I like learning, I like retaining. And I haven't done a single bit of reading since I failed in November. I haven't looked at any of the theory, and I haven't done any of the things that I would normally do to pass an exam, like with my notes. I don't know, maybe I've tried to modernize my study techniques, but yeah, I haven't done what I normally do to pass an exam, Imogen. I'm just thinking about it now. I haven't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, to me, it's not, the techniques are sort of downstream of what I'm talking about. It's to do with a mental state when you're studying. It's that when you're kind of, oh, this is horrible, P1, I can't get anywhere, I can't pass, nothing's working for me. That's a horrible mental state. And it's that feeling of pit in the stomach kind of stuff, which makes it likely you're in one of those unproductive mental states. So actually your feelings are very important to this. Now, you can then do whatever study technique you like. Now, my one has tended to be to write question and answers on each side. When I started CIMA, I'd done that through AAT, the question and answer things through AAT. When I started CIMA, I thought, well, it's CIMA now, we better do the serious A4 notes with highlighters. And I started doing that. And you see, it's my thinking. It wasn't from any inspiration inside me to do that. It was, now we're serious. Now it's CIMA. Actually, I had to go, I'm throwing all of those out in favour of my little revision cards. And I kept them now in boxed files behind me to pull out next case study. But you can get yourselves into very funny ideas about studying as well and what study techniques are. But on E2, I was doing those flip cards again, and then suddenly they stopped working for me. There were just too many of them, really, as part of the thing. E2, I think I said E2. And then I went into mind maps. And it worked for me. And you know what? I'd never done, certainly not a proper colourful mind map previously anywhere else in CIMA. But this is it.
Okay.
Fun. And when you're in tune with that kind of inner knowing and inner sense, because you've got an inner guidance system. Absolutely, you've got an inner guidance system. This is what people they try and get those last few points. They get desperate about those last few points to get them over 100. Okay, they lose sight that they've got a massive learning system inside them that allows them to walk and speak English, both of which are miraculous things in themselves. And everything else that they have learned, they've got a guidance system. That guidance system will not only give you the insight so you see more in the text and really get to understand it, and it's not like speaking a foreign language, it's like your native language. Okay, not only will it will sometimes give you insights into how to study. For example, me doing F1 with my flick cards over a lunch break in a new job where I went to myself, I don't like this because I'm being really antisocial and, these are my new work colleagues. And later, it's not always this fast, but literally moments later, you said, why don't you record some of your textbook and listen to it in the car?
Yes.
And you can nick that idea if you like, but don't forget where it came from was my inner wisdom, and you've got that inner wisdom as well. you have everything you need.
Yeah.
One, if you trust it.
Yeah.
And go with
I think I'm disappointed with myself now in how I haven't done what I know works for me. I think I have got caught up in the whole frenzy that particularly goes around this exam, and stopped learning how I wanted to learn. Yeah, I definitely feel I go back to the drawing board. Not like everything's got forgotten, and I certainly haven't forgotten my knowledge. Just some of it is in there, quite ingrained, but obviously not enough. But yeah, I think I need to enjoy it again and watch the open tuition lectures. They put in the odd joke there, here and there as well, and do that, I think so. And maybe not put myself under so much pressure.
Yeah, you don't need to put yourself under pressure. You really don't. And it's one of the myths of those SEMA groups is fail is bad. But it actually isn't. This may make you a better accountant after all. This may open up new insights into study, carry you away. It's but it just falls apart. I mean, let's take an example. A chap named Nick who failed one of his accountancy exams. It was a written paper, and because of that, he found out everything he could about how to pass that paper, and produced, amongst things, a writing technique for it. And he passed, and he went on. He was an accountant, and then he became interested in teaching. And that was the exam he really wanted to teach, the one that he had failed.
Okay, yes.
And then later on, he went and opened up what we call a learning provider. And it specialised in the written papers.
Okay.
And that company is Astronti.
Oh, I like them. I really like them.
And they would not exist if it wasn't for a fail. And if you look through the history of mankind, and my personal history as well, recovery failure is what creates new stuff.
Yeah. Yes, I think you need to, when you've had the failure, I'm now telling you what you already told me when we first started, but take a step back and actually kind of let it wash over you and get out of your system first, rather than I've got to reset as soon as possible, and without taking the time to even let that fail. I can't explain it. Become part of you as well.
Well, yeah, take the
you kind of let it wash over you and through you before you suddenly rack it back up again.
Yeah. This is another one of these human things that you can see the corollary in study, but it hits all over the place. Is that in the if you've put hours and hours in, the chances are you have got. Ideally, this doesn't happen, and it's bizarre how I do it. I tend to do it around mocks and then realise that that's against, not against what I stand for, but I sort of talk myself out of it. But you can get very attached to an exam result. So when people fail an exam, that they feel like they've poured their life and soul into it, of course, there is an emotional reaction.
I cried when I got my third fail.
Yeah.
Actually, I was walking to the car and I had tears rolling down from my eyes. And then when I got in the car and closed the door in the privacy of my car, I cried, because I had given, in my eyes, everything that I could have given to pass that exam, and I still couldn't cross the finishing line.
Yeah.
It's emotional. It is very emotional when you give so much of your time.
Yeah. But we all have a kind of psychological immune system that will clear out those traumas, as long as you don't kind of hold on to them and dwell on them. Now, I've been in my case study group, I did have one person, it's only been one incidentally, and I've been doing it for over a year. And I said, we did have one person there who had failed the last OCS, and she carried it with her all the way through. I'm the one who failed. I failed. I failed. I failed. I failed. If you hold on to it, then you know, if you keep heavily dwelling on it, then it can stay with you. But by and large, it clears really quickly. And I've approached people, do you want some coaching? Somebody who's failed an OT. And I said, oh, do you want some coaching? And they'll agree, first of all, and then we try and arrange it with them. No, they'll go back to study, because some people recover very, very quickly from it. And it's when you start recovering, it starts getting more, then you can, you know, when you get calmer about it, you can make better decisions. It happens all over life, this, because if a knock in your life, don't make a decision when you're emotionally high as a kite, angry, furious, whatever. Try and let it sit for a bit. And this scheduling of exams,
Yes, like you say, it's about sort of applying some of your life skills that you've. You know, I'm 42 now, and I've still got lots to learn, I'm sure, but I have got life skills, and applying that perhaps to your study journey as well. Not looking at the two perhaps so separately, and looking at SEMA being part of your life journey rather than study on one side and life on the other. Like you say, taking the step back, that's what you do in real life, isn't it? Not that study's not real life, but you know what I mean. In real life, you would.
Some people don't take a step back in real life. They're often found in Her Majesty's prisons, though.
Exactly. But you say, I've got children, one's a teenager, one's about to turn a teenager, and that's the sort of thing I would say to them. Don't worry, take a deep breath. That's what I'd say to them, in all honesty. But you kind of box your SEMA studies, don't you, in this little area that's separate, and don't apply same logic to the emotional side of it rather than. Yes. So yes, it's back to the drawing board for me. Back to my own gut reaction rather than just being driven by this question practice, because I don't think, and it's probably not going to be the best thing for my OCS as well. Sorry, that's one of my clients. I get confused. It's not, if I just do question, it's not going to help me, fingers crossed, to come May time or August, if all I know is how to answer the mathsy questions, because it's quite clearly says that you won't be expected to do calculations. That's what we're the majority of us are here to, like you say, become better at our jobs and become better accountants and everything else, and you're only going to do that by understanding it. So yes, it's definitely a different thought process, isn't it, from the one I've been on.
Well, I don't know, but you may actually feel it's a rather more relaxed, chilled, and
well, it really is, because that's the way I've always chosen to study in the past. And that's how I first tackled my SEMA exams when I was on the certificate level. So yeah, it probably is, and then you enjoy it a bit more because you're not so stressed all the time.
Mm.
You actually want to learn. You're a bit more of a sponge, aren't you, when you want to learn?
Mm.
Right. It's time for me to start enjoying SEMA again. I
Yes.
don't think I have done. I don't think I have done for the last few months. Actually, it's been a bind and a worry on my shoulders.
Mm.
And then every time you're not studying, you think, "Oh, I should be studying. I should be studying." But actually,
No, there's definitely times you should not be studying.
but yeah, I think I maybe need to tackle it differently from some of the other people, and stick to kind of my roots, as it were. Well, it's got to be worth a try, Imogen, hasn't it? Because the current way's not working.
Mm.
Yeah.
And hopefully you enjoy it enough to say, even if I fail the next one, I would still do it this way because it's so in line with where I am.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, I really do think that this is the right way to go. I really do.
Mm.
Because it's tried and tested, and up until, my first attempt was 94.
Mm.
And that's not a million miles away.
No.
And I was quite proud of that.
Mm. And if you can get a really
So
sense of the syllabus, you could go over 100.
100 is the magic number.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
that's another one of
Actually,
the artificial things. It's artificial, but it's what SEMA has had to pick an artificial figure.
Yeah.
That's how the game is played, but you don't take it personally or too seriously if you don't get to 100.
Yeah.
I think you will. I think you could go.
Yeah. No,
indeed, on an understanding, because people who really understood the syllabus can do really, really well at P1, and time just doesn't matter. And by the way, there is a time for practice. There is a time for question practice. It's towards the end, and it clarifies things. But one thing you mentioned, you did not do the questions in the chapter. I would encourage you to do the end of chapter questions, because they'll be designed to pick up all the potential errors which you may not realise that you've fallen into. And there's even research suggesting that end of chapter questions are a very good idea to do.
Okay. I will try those then as well. Yeah, I just got to take the focus off. No, Tom, I'm nearly done. Sorry.
Anything else?
No, I feel a lot calmer now, because I feel like I've got a plan, and I didn't have a plan. Like when I first came to you and I was like, Imogen, what am I going to do? I'm going backwards. I do feel like I've kind of or got a path to follow, which is making me feel confident, as I probably keep like a broken record saying I'm following a tried and tested method. That has got me through exams.
But be aware, you've got an inbuilt learning machine, is it there? And it may suggest some little variances of that. So don't get dogmatic about your old study. Be prepared for it.
No, but I liked what you said when you wrote the question on one side and then the answer on the other. I quite I've not heard of that before, so I am going to steal that from you because I quite like that. And you can pop the papers or the flashcards or whatever in your bag, and they're there, aren't they, just to grab and have a read through and a practice or whatever while you're out and about and or on a commute or just anything. So no, I like that idea. I think that's a good one. So I've stolen it. It's mine now.
Super. So I'm about to switch the recording off. Thank you very much, and I'm sure people will find this
Thank
really
you.
useful.
Yeah, I feel